When we think about mental health, our minds often jump straight to labels and diagnoses, right? But what if the most important part of the story isn't the label itself, but the actual person it's attached to? Well, today we're going to dive right into that idea.
Have you ever felt that? It's something so many of us can relate to. You get a diagnosis, maybe it's ADHD, depression, anxiety, and all of a sudden it feels like your entire complicated, messy, beautiful life gets shrunk down into one single word.
But here's the thing. What if that label isn't the end of the story? What if it's really just the beginning, just chapter 1? That's the whole perspective we're going to explore together right now. Now, look, traditional diagnoses are absolutely essential. They're the tools that help professionals identify symptoms and figure out a path for treatment. But in that process of categorizing everything, sometimes they can accidentally flatten out a lifetime of experience. The person at the center of it all can kind of get lost. And this is the question that really changes everything. Instead of only asking what's wrong, what happens if we also start asking, what does this mean to you? You see how that simple shift just opens up a whole new way of understanding things? Okay, so to really wrap our heads around what this new path looks like, it really helps to compare it to what we're used to. Let's break down the two main ways of looking at mental health. So on one side, you've got the medical model, which is probably the one you're most familiar with. Think of it like a mechanic checking an engine. It's all about the symptoms, the data, finding the right fix. But on the other side, you've got the client empowerment model. And that's more like a road trip you plan together, focusing on your personal story and the meaning you discover along the way. And this table just makes the difference so clear. Just look at the line for client role. In one model, you're a patient, and the goal is to reduce your symptoms. But in the other, you're a collaborative partner on a journey of real growth and change. That's not just a tiny change in wording. That is a huge shift in power and perspective. And that idea of being a partner, well, that leads us directly to what is maybe the most radical and empowering piece of this entire approach. This right here, this is the absolute heart of it. This entire model is built on one simple, powerful belief. You are the #1 expert on your own life, period. No one else has walked in your shoes. No one else has felt your feelings. A therapist isn't the expert on you. Their job is to help you unlock the expertise you already have inside. Okay, so what does this teamwork actually look like in practice? Well, it starts by uncovering things, not just a list of symptoms, but the real, meaningful life experiences that are all tied together. Then you work together to spot the underlying patterns, the blueprints for your thoughts and behaviors. And finally, the most important step, you synthesize. You bring your insights and their insights together to figure out what it all means. And you see, when the whole process is about finding meaning, the goal itself completely transforms. It becomes about so much more than just putting a bandage on symptoms. This chart just lays it out so perfectly. Of course, symptom reduction is important. We all want to feel better, right? But in the empowerment model, that's just the starting line, not the finish line. The real ultimate goal is lasting personal growth and change. Let's make this really concrete. Let's talk about Jack, a case from the source material. He had an ADHD diagnosis, and he was always being told he had control issues. Can you imagine? He was left feeling totally frustrated and humiliated, especially when he compared himself to his siblings. But by actually exploring the meaning behind his experiences, Jack and his practitioner were able to reframe his ADHD completely. It wasn't a deficit. It was just a different way of being intelligent. And that shift in perspective changed literally everything for him. It took him from a place of shame to a place of self-understanding. That is the power of looking beyond the label. So you might be asking yourself, okay, how do you even start on a path like this? Well, it all begins by asking some very different kinds of questions. Just take a look at these questions. They're not some dry checklist of symptoms, are they? They're invitations. They're openers to a real conversation. They dig into the feelings behind the label, the humiliation, the frustration, that tricky line between what we believe and what we feel. It's a dialogue, not a diagnosis. And I really want to make this crystal clear. This is not about throwing diagnoses in the trash. Not at all. It's about adding to them. It's about supplementing that clinical framework with the one thing it can't capture, your unique, personal, and meaningful experience. So when you boil it all down, it really comes down to this one thing: discovering the meaning that is already there, inside your own experiences. So, I'll leave you with this final, powerful thought to chew on. What if true healing doesn't start by trying to fix what we think is broken, but by taking the time to truly understand the story it's trying to tell? Just think about that. What could that change for you?